what a day it's been. And to enter it really, to leave it on a high like this, where each of you are doing unbelievably fascinating things, approaching the issue from an academic standpoint, from a research standpoint, from a communication standpoint, a sharing standpoint, a grassroots sort of organic standpoint, is really amazing. Since we only have about 20 minutes or so, I do want you to pick anything else, because you cut a lot to get everything in 5 or 6 minutes. Anything that after hearing everybody else you'd like to throw out there, but I'll give you the opportunity to just kind of go down the line. Carrie, let me start with you, because there's so much there, and to be able to have the book and be able to go back and read it and read some of the recent research is something I'm sure we'll all do. On the flip side, or looking at it a little bit differently, what can technology do to really improve things? And I'm sure you're always hit with the question of, we're locked into the devices, things are bad. But what on the flip side of that?
Oh my goodness. Well, there are so many things. And I think, as I said in my presentation, listening to youth voices helps direct our attention towards the things that are most positive. Because today's focus is on mental health, and there are so many experts out there, I'll add a layer that I would have added if I had more time in my talk, which is that my close partner in this work, psychologist Emily Weinstein, a couple of years ago did a fascinating study where she interviewed young people who were in inpatient care for suicidal attempt or ideation. And her focus in those interviews was the role of social media in their distress or in their sense of well-being. And maybe you can predict what I'm gonna say, but it was all over the map in terms of individuals' youth experiences. So for some, it was absolute, the way they were using media and the content they were engaging with was absolutely contributing to their sense of despair. And for others, it was absolutely a lifeline. And those youth had found those positive spaces, whether they be through particular subreddits on Reddit, pockets of Instagram that were all about spirituality and well-being, body positivity. They had found their way. There's no one platform out there in terms of the general apps that youth use. I could talk about some ed tech platforms that I think are particularly powerful, and so folks can ask me afterwards about that. But it really is variable, and I think it's really important to remember that teens are not a monolith, and if we want to understand what their media lives are like and what they're doing, what their media lives are doing for their well-being, we need to ask questions and not make assumptions and find out what are they engaging with, how is it making them feel, and how can we help them strike the balance between the stuff that's deteriorating their sense of well-being and the stuff that every day is uplifting them.
Thank you. Carolyn, I love the academic sort of approach and getting the information and the data, and seeing even the depiction of it is makes it pop, makes it come alive. On the school-based interventions, just from the research that you've done, on the equity issues, the equitable issues, we're in this world of scarce resources, and the ability to do that is going through everybody's mind, coming through. To continue to make them equitable, the word justice was mentioned earlier. I think Dr. Shem mentioned it and that sort of thing. What observations do you have? I know it's not right at the core of your research.
I think it's really important. You mentioned scarce resources, and others have mentioned that as well. And the importance of coordination has come out. And so I'm just going to take, for example, our coordinated school health program and directors. So that is in almost every district now, I think, in the state. But they've been funded at a given level that hasn't really changed much over time. And you saw from what I showed, just up to 2019, the number of kids who have those needs. And now we know from research it's doubled since the pandemic. We need more resources, and they need to be steady. Another person mentioned earlier today the challenges for youth when they start working with a counselor or a behavioral health therapist, and then it changes. And that's because, it is challenging to sustain these types of resources in a scarce environment, or as I mentioned earlier, if you're working with time-limited grants. And our coordinated school health directors have been extremely resourceful in leveraging resources in the communities, like East Tennessee State University has a lot of partnerships, and our Vanderbilt Health, other centers and other providers who also bring resources into the school district, but that takes a lot of work. They're writing grants constantly. And then, like for those who have had the Project Aware grants, those are time-limited 5-year grants. How do you sustain the infrastructure once those funding sources end? So I think I'm excited about, what Governor Lee has done, but the more we can have steady, long-term funding streams, and, the teachers, educators also appreciate that, they can hire social workers, people who are trained, can train the other trainers, can bring an understanding of the importance of, we talked about the culture, having a culture and common language to understand mental health. So many amazing things happen in our school districts, but it is still a case of scarce resources, and someone from Bledsoe County mentioned that they were a distressed county. It varies from place to place what resources are there, how they, what the opportunities they have to lever partnerships. And so I think just realizing that this is such an important thing we've been doing, we need to continue and strengthen the funding underneath it, and make sure we're also recognizing that these partnerships, the other, federally qualified health centers, they also, are part of that infrastructure. And so it is a community and statewide project. And the more we can recognize that and uplift the work and that people are doing, which is so amazing. I can begin to describe the number of innovative things we've seen school districts do, thanks in part to what we've put in place so far.
I think I'm going to leave today in part. The research and the data is so important, the affirmation of what works. You don't want everything to work, because otherwise you're not learning.
Yeah.
But to get the affirmation of that and shout it and accelerate it and share it. And that's why when we open, we do want to have realistic hope coming in.
Yeah.
Bill, and you talk about hope, Bill, it's kind of, you're built around making this hope realities. Amazing, the number of people that you have touched and you touch, and by you, I mean, the massive number of people who help you. What's the biggest challenge? Right now, you're on the road all the time. You've got the great voice. You've got the story. You've got the results that are out there. What do you see now in terms of the next several years' challenge of growth for reaching not just 1 million, but 2 million and 3 million people?
Well, my theory of change has been, it's taken all these years to even get it heard. If you would zero in on the bottom third, or the Title I kids, and surround them with all the resources that they need, that's the anchor that's pulling all education down. By freeing that anchor, we have to have a long-range plan of zeroing in on that. Our goal is to have a site coordinator in all 72,314 schools in America. And you'll need more in some, but that frees up for the rest. And the two, I always had trouble coming off the streets, and all of a sudden I was being asked to go to these hearings, and I didn't know they called them hearings because nobody's listening. I would just tell them all this stuff, and no change in history. I'm self-taught, so I'm dangerous. And I said, I couldn't find anywhere in history where change has happened in 2, 3, or 4 years. But the political system says you have to bring change every 2 to 4 years. Foundation says 3 years. We need people who are in it for the whole long run, that really invest and not try to have overnight success, but understand we didn't get into this situation overnight. We aren't going to do it. So it's bringing all of these forces together over a long period of time with the kind of funding that'll sustain it to really make the change.
The buckets you have on the slide are clear, and they're common sense, but they give a discipline to what you do and what you provide. How long did it take to develop those? I mean, in the first few years, you had probably a good gut feeling of what you wanted to do. How long did it take to put it down into those columns?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Your slide up there that had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How long did it take to develop?
It took me a year to figure that out. And I said, what do I want for me? What do I want for our kids?
Yeah.
And I said, every kid deserves that. And if you're going to integrate systems, then you have to have it around 5 things, or 4 things. These are the 5. The key is the relationship. And then how do you say you care about somebody? I had all these kids living with me, so if they don't have a skill, then the only thing they can do is sell drugs. And if they then get on the straight and narrow and they're living in food deserts, or they're living in places where they don't have their basic needs met, they aren't going to make it. Let me just tell you real quick, and I have no time to go into this, but I was at one of the hearings that you used to have in D.C.
There are a couple of people up there who would listen in those hearings.
But I never was in front of you. But a guy, you have to answer the question in 3 minutes. And I thought I'd gotten through the thing. And he said, I got one more question. And he said, what's the difference in the kids you've seen make it over all these years and the ones that didn't? And my old nature wanted to come out. I wanted to go across that table, and I wouldn't be here today if I had done that. Because I spoke at 12 funerals by the time I was 25, and I wondered, how could I live in a country where I'm speaking at kids' funerals 30 blocks away from the richest people in the world? And I just didn't understand the inequity thing. And then I started thinking about it. It came to me. I said, the greatest gift you can give somebody is to allow them to give something to you. That hope is something that happens when I know I can participate in the change. Sometimes we help people too much. We got to find and create environments in the schools where every kid has a chance to give. That's why I fight like crazy for the arts and that. Sometimes that's the first thing a kid can be affirmed on. Identity comes on what you've been able to receive. And then, they need a chance to give back because that's where they find that they're part of the democracy and part of the change.
And that's so much of a theme that's gone over the course of today. I mean, it's kind of pervasive, weaving through all of our conversations of the people who have spoken today. Dr. Romero, go a little bit further in the healthcare system or primary care. What do the providers who are out there, what's sort of a role or a message as we think about sort of accelerating change and being an amplifier or a megaphone? The primary care world?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've thought about a lot that I think it's so important is a recognition that when we're having this conversation of any system, I have to assess and look at how am I perpetuating the system the way it is. There's often things in this system that if we perpetuate it, folks are never going to get the services that they need because the system was designed to exclude those folks. One of the things we've done that has been really important is to recognize that mental health, as we had maybe envisioned it before, excluded folks. We wanted to be the big deal. So we want to know, oh, this is a mental health issue. It's not a physical issue. And we found ourselves very comfortable in our silos. I believe that we are in a season that we are recognizing that we have several crises within the healthcare system: chronic disease, mental health, cost, workforce development. And what we are finding is that, yes, we want to change, but it does take a lot of commitment, a lot of humility, a lot of openness, a childlike approach to recognizing, oh, it's okay to change. It's okay to re-envision this system. And I'll end with this. I've gotten into so many meetings, and it has been really helpful for me to walk into those meetings and know that nobody here is a villain. Now, there are villains out there, but in those particular meetings, it's helpful because collaboration is the key for us to be able to re-envision this system.
I'm just thinking what Bill said about collaboration and partnership, still coming in collaboration really does mean you're listening and participating and part of something bigger than yourself. Mm-hmm. let's close, add anything else quickly with what you want to say, because we just have a few minutes, but let's close with anything practical as we leave, either as you heard today or from your presentation. As we look for Tennessee and some action items to do, everybody kind of throw out one, and it can be with relating to your presentation if you like, but some sort of thing going forward that would make our situation in Tennessee about this intersection of student success in the broadest sense and mental health to make things better. Anybody want to go first? Everybody say something. I need 4 things in the next 3.5 minutes.
Can go down the line if you want. So it was mentioned that we have our new Tennessee TISA funding formula, right, which gives flexibility to school districts, but also means that there will be competing priorities within them. And so I think one of the things you're all here today because you obviously realize how important mental health is, and we have to keep getting that message out because it is not the same in every district where there's buy-in. And so shout out to those superintendents, principals who realize it's important. And one of the things I hope our research will show over time is because we can look at education outcomes as well as mental health, that intersection and how it relates, whether we're addressing those mental health issues, that will enhance our educational outcomes over time. So very important as we think about those competing interests for those TISA funds.
Good. I love it. Next. Carrie, you want to jump in, or anybody? Bill?
I came here because I am so excited. I think Tennessee is on the cutting edge of a lot of change in a lot of ways. And one is this. I do believe this, that we always concentrate on the youth. I don't think the youth are the issue. We have an adult problem. You can't give away what you don't have. And I'm seeing a lot of suffering among the adults that are in those classrooms. They're under attack. Our teachers, our superintendent, we got to face that. And you got to change, not just give the kids individual help, you got to create a whole different climate. And so if we want to see real health, we have to see it both individually and collectively. And a lot of tier 1 mental health is just basic human, hey, I believe in you. You belong, you're worth. You get to tier 2, you need to be able to do some interventions, and then tier 3, you need to bring other people in, but you've got to do that in a systematic way and understand that this isn't a youth, it's all of our issue. And if the adults are burnt out, like I'm finding them all over this country, we got to be about their having caring adults in their life too. And
I'm glad you underscored. It came out in our discussions today, in the role of parents, that in our interaction itself, and it is a collective approach.
I was thinking of the power of settings like this as an opportunity for seeds to be spread. And I think my hope for all of us is to see, how can I nurture maybe the small things that I connected with, that align, that the dots that connected? Because ultimately the change that we are looking for is not going to be a simple one, it's going to be a complex one, and it will be very unique to the local needs and opportunities. So I think I would love to encourage that piece of remembering these are seeds. It's often hard to kind of see these big ideas and to try to replicate that identically. That's not going to happen.
I think it's well said, and that's why we opened it. It's kind of a platform and discussion and seeds planted. And then that really implies we got an obligation when we leave here. It's been really good morning, good afternoon. We got a lot we can do, and collectively we can do by putting these ideas out there and then acting on them. Gary, what about it?
So I'll go back to my topic, which is tech.
Good.
And this is going to sound odd because I just talked about how, we do research on tech and we develop resources that get at young people's pain points around tech. But we have noticed over the years, listening to young people, that the most powerful conversations about tech don't start with technology at all. Like we've noticed the power of a pivot from leading conversations that are about well-being in a tech-rich world with like, how is TikTok pulling you into a rabbit hole? Or, conversations laced with assumptions about the tech, and pivot toward, how are you? Like, how are you right now? How is your well-being? What are the things that you care about that are hard to live out right now, or that you're living out and you're feeling good about? And how can we lean into those? So start with the teen and then shift to the tech. How is the way you use technology helping you live your values or making those values harder to live? How is the way that you're using technology contributing to your well-being or undercutting it? And that pivot from starting with the teens, starting with the whole person, and then locating the role of technology in their experience and in their mental health is just transformative.
Just another thing that it's consistency of how we frame things, whether it's the mental health literacy or listening first. And what you just said, I think over the weekend I was talking to my boys were all married, they each had 3 children. I said, how are you controlling this technology thing? And went straight to technology. And I really should have been saying, how are you listening to your kids? And then come to technology. Oh, what do we do with all this that we've learned here? We'll be closed in 3 minutes because that's what we said, which I hate because we can talk and have these conversations. And it is the start. I have to say that opening just a few hours ago, I leave really encouraged and come back to not just hope, but hope coupled with action and things that we can do as we go ahead. The breadth of perspectives, there's nowhere else in the United States that you could be and get the amount of information that we all shared among each other, listening, going quickly, having great preparation done, condensing messages down to stimulate thought. There's just nowhere else you can get it, and that's why we believe so strongly at SCORE and NashvilleHealth, pulling people together, safe environment, sharing information. It does, as I keep implying, give us a real responsibility, an obligation, and that is to take it, to think about it, not just on the plane home or driving home, but really digest what we've heard and what we've learned. I'm going to continue to reflect on the learnings from today, and we'll do it in a formal way, and I hope you will too. If you'd like to share your reflections, I invite you to complete the brief survey found on the screen. And I wrote down notes over the course of the morning. I'm not going to go through those, but I will tell you the key things. Collaboration, probably not just partnership, but collaboration is key. Sort of one holistic approach, and we all know that. Empowering students is another, and continued learning is another. When we need to look more closely at that community level mental health data, we need to better understand the impacts and the outcomes, and share them, improve them, and then act on them. On behalf of SCORE and NashvilleHealth, I do want to express my sincere gratitude to each and every one of the speakers, the participants, the people who came just to engage, the people who came just to listen. All of your dedication to this particular issue, a critical issue, a fundamental issue that affects all of our lives, as well as the children both around the world today in this country, but also children of the future. I have no doubt that really together that we can, if we act, if we take everything that we've learned, we put it together, we begin to package it, we begin to act on it, can make meaningful strides towards the future where every single student, today and tomorrow, indeed will have the opportunity to thrive academically and, as we've talked about over the course of today, emotionally. So as we leave here, let's carry forth the momentum generated by the symposium. Let's continue to learn about and study and read and advocate for those policies and those practices that prioritize, that bring up and shine light on and put out front the mental health issues surrounding our students in schools today. And let's all stay focused and steadfast in our commitment to building a brighter, a healthier future for generations and generations to come. Thank you once again, and let's keep this conversation going.